Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. And yes, we have finally arrived at Super Bowl week. Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots. And yeah, there's this narrative going around. It's not the most glamorous matchup. It's not the most exciting matchup that maybe we could have gotten. But hey, it's here. It's the final game of the NFL season. When you got a chance to make some picks and make some bets, hey, it's going to be exciting. That's all there is to it. And I'm excited to talk about that game. But I'm also excited for another reason because we've got a great guest joining us. And I say great because he plays for my hometown Hamilton Ticats. That's why he's great. But he is great at what he does. He's had a tremendous season kicking for my Ticats, all-time single-season record for accuracy in franchise history for a single season. And now, happy to have him with us here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, Marc Liegghio. And Marc, we do this chant at the home games, and even when your team is on the road and we're watching on TV, where every time you make a kick, we go, Liegghio, Liegghio, Liegghio. And boy, oh boy, we just love doing that. We did that a lot this year because you didn't miss too many. But congrats on a great season, and welcome to the Frenzy, man. How are you? Things good?
I'm awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And, Oski Wee Wee.
Oski Wee Wee, indeed. It was a fun season. It was a great season for the team. You fell short, obviously, a little bit in that Great East final, but, back and forth game. And Davis Alexander, good friend of mine. So it was tough. I love my Ticats, cheering for them, but become a friend of him. He's been on the show many times in the past. And, he's someone that was like, but once he got that ball in his hand, Marc, in that East final, and needing just a field goal to put his team in position to win, I looked over to my buddies there at the game at formerly Tim Hortons Field, now Hamilton Stadium, and I said, well, guys, it's been a great season. We'll see you next year. Honestly, I said that. I was very worried. He's just, he's that kind of guy. He's like a Mahomes type in the CFL. Just finds a way to move his team into position when you need a drive, you need points. He's going to give it, but that doesn't take away, Marc, from a great season for your football team. And like I said, a bounce back year of sorts. And for you personally, an outstanding season kicking for this team. I mean, you had a walk-off field goal against, I think it was the Elks this past season. I know you had one last year against the Toronto Argonauts as well. And both times they did the Rudy with you, hoisting you up on everyone's shoulders after the kick was made. So that was an awesome sight. But before we get into that, actually, I should let you speak on that first. The season that was, and just your time in Hamilton. I know you're an Ontario kid. I think obviously proximity-wise to your hometown, there's no team closer to your hometown in the CFL than Hamilton. So it must be a great fit, you playing here in Steeltown.
Yeah, no, it's definitely awesome. Getting to see my family out to the games like more often is also an amazing feeling. Being Italian, so everybody always wants tickets to come to the game. So I always bring at least like 15 to 20 people to each game. So the family section's always packed, and just the environment and the community in Hamilton has just been so welcoming, and the fans itself, they bring the energy to every game, and it's a different feeling playing in Hamilton Stadium.
Yeah, it is. So obviously a great environment. We're up there, I think, with Saskatchewan, with Winnipeg. Those are the big three, Marc, in the CFL to me. I don't think there's much competition with Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, and Hamilton as the three best home fields in the CFL, the three most, loudest environments to play in, where the fans are really, really make an impact on the game, certainly on the opponent when they've got the football. But yeah, it's a great home environment right there with Winnipeg, right there with Saskatchewan as well. Let's rewind, though, to how you first got into playing football and specifically the position of kicking. How did that start?
Yeah, so growing up, being Italian from Woodbridge, I started off with the soccer. That's basically where I got my
Should have
feet
known.
wet in sports. But yeah, I played soccer until I was about grade 9, and I also picked up hockey along the way as well. Then my first, I guess, kicking aspect started in rugby. I played rugby, Team Ontario and Team Canada in high school. I was kicking the after the tries for that, and I played with a bunch of my football buddies growing up as well, which I eventually started playing football in grade 11. And it was just the fact that my buddy's dad asked me, it's like, why don't you come play football? He saw me kicking. He's like, why are you not playing football? I'm like, I don't know. I just never gave it a shot. And then the next day I asked him about it, and then I joined the team, played quarterback, receiver, linebacker. I played every position, and then eventually just kind of stuck out with kicking because I thought that's where I had the best chance, and I was well known for my shot in soccer and everything. So I just kind of played the role along the way and eventually just kept with it.
And of course, getting into the CIS ranks, of course, and getting to play in Canadian University football was, I'm sure, something that kickstarted, obviously, and was the springboard, if you will, into playing professionally here in the CFL. But obviously playing for the Western Mustangs. Was it still Greg Marshall coaching at the time? Must have been.
Yeah, I was with Greg Marshall for all my years at Western.
Yeah. Yeah. How was that experience? I hear about Western Mustangs, Western University, London, Ontario. It's probably one of the more well-known Ontario universities, if not Canadian universities, and it's quite the party university, from what I've heard as well.
Yeah, no, Western, when I was getting recruited and Western was on the table for me, when I was going through the evaluation process and recruiting, it's like, oh, you play football at Western? Like that's kind of like the mentality. It's like you go to Western and you play football, you were like an elite guy, you know what I mean? But that I just thought the fit was best for me football wise, and then obviously school comes first. I got my degree from Western in criminology, minor in sociology. But my years there, definitely the party school. I wasn't more so the party guy. Like I wanted to go to practice and be in the best shape I could for every game every week. I always loved grabbing a beer after games with the guys and stuff, of course. With the winning culture we had at Western, we got to celebrate a lot of wins
I
and
got
that kind
my
of
eyes
stuff.
on the prize. I'm leaving that nonsense to everybody else. I like that attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Vanier was awesome getting it in 2017. Like that was definitely an experience. Also winning it at Hamilton Stadium, which was pretty cool. So just all my years at Western, all the accolades and all the coaching and friends I made through along the way was just amazing.
Yeah, and you beat that juggernaut in the CIS ranks for that Vanier Cup in 2017. The Laval Rouge et Or, who have been, they're always they're always right there. They're in the mix usually to win the Vanier Cup every year. Constantin, that coach that's been there forever, he's done just an amazing job with it's like a reload program. Every year they're good, and every year they have a chance to win the Atlantic Conference and obviously win the Vanier Cup as well. So that must have been a big deal, beating them, and I'm sure a big, accolade for you and your team to be able to pull that one off.
Yeah, that we were definitely. I think going into the game, we were definitely underdogs. It was. I think everyone's like Laval, 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 but we
Oh, of
also had
course.
one of our best seasons ever as a Mustang program.
Reminds me of when
And
Mac beat them too, like a
yeah,
decade ago.
I
When
know
I
it's
think Kyle
crazy.
Quinlan was their quarterback, and nobody gave McMaster a chance to beat Laval that year, and they did.
Yeah, they were always the powerhouse, and like it was always you always have like the names of like the CIS and the RESQ and all that kind of stuff. There was the main teams of the group, and that game was definitely a clash. And the way that we started and came out of the game, like we had some different energy. It was just a different game.
Absolutely. So drafted to the CFL, 2020 was the draft year for you. So we were right in the middle of COVID, obviously crazy times back then. It almost feels like that period 6 years ago feels like another eternity, another planet. Another a different life we lived. 6 years ago. It feels like looking back on it 6 years later. But the draft that was the year you got drafted, 2020, to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Of course, that year there was no CFL season, so you really had to end up waiting until 2021 to
Hmm.
make your CFL debut. But how excited were you, and with that feeling of getting drafted by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
Yeah, like that definitely was one of the best experiences and nights of my life because it's kind of dream come true. You worked all your life to see your name pop up on that board and get an opportunity to play at the pro level. But obviously during the times like it was still COVID, so we couldn't really celebrate the way that we wanted to. So it was more so just like a little friends and family gathering at the time. But yeah, it was just an emotional night for me, and obviously like a lot of excitement as well. But emotions were definitely flying around that night when I saw my name on the board.
And not every CFL rookie gets to win the Grey Cup in year one. Of course, you did that at the expense of my beloved Ticats before you joined the team. That was a classic, though. It was a classic. It was a classic game. It was a great game. I mean, it went to overtime, 33-25. We had every time I think about that game, gosh, we had a multitude of chances to close that sucker out, and we just couldn't do it. But credit to you and, of course, Zach played a hell of a game at quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're rallying them to win that, and it was a great football game in overtime. A friend of mine at the Grey Cup had a little bit of a stumbling accident, had to actually get to the hospital during that
Oh
game. So
no.
actually, he didn't see the ending, and I felt like saying to him, "Man, you did not miss much. You missed one of the biggest heartbreaks you'll ever see. So don't worry about it." But he's okay now. It wasn't a major issue, but yeah, at the moment, like we were a little concerned about his well-being, but nevertheless, it was a great football game, and just talk about that feeling being a Grey Cup champion.
Yeah, that game was definitely emotions flying everywhere because we were down most of the game, and then getting like to even go to overtime was just massive because I can't remember how much we were behind, but it was just like we were inching back most of the game. The energy in the stadium was definitely, you could feel it, like we were not welcome there at all, and I don't blame them for that, but yeah,
A
like
Bomber
winning.
fans showed up though. There was a decent contingent of them, as you would expect.
Yeah, they definitely have a great fan base as well. Like they'll make the trek if it's part of the big games, that's for sure. But yeah, at the end of the game, like family on the field, like I don't know how many people I hugged. It was just crazy. I was late to the champagne popping in the change room because I had so much family there watching. Luckily, it was in Hamilton where most of my family were able to come to the game. But yeah, like the environment in the change room, the environment of the game, and winning the game itself, and then eventually getting to see the ring at the end of it, it was that's definitely something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, no doubt. And you already had accomplished, a lot of highs, right? You're in the CFL, you're a, regular place kicker. Of course, the next season I'm seeing that you actually assumed punting duties as well. The second season you were in Winnipeg. Is that something you easily accept, that responsibility of being a punter as well? I know place kicking, you're a place kicker at heart, you're a field goal kicker at heart, but is it one of those situations, and it's probably your strongest suit, but at the same point in time, if they were to ever ask you to punt, you'd say, hey, no problem. I feel confident in my ability to do that as well.
Yeah, so going through Canadian University, usually they carry one kicker and he does both duties. So I'm a very competitive guy, so I wanted to be the best at both. And coming out of university, I was lucky enough to get first team All Canadian for punting and kicking. So that it's always run with me. I always keep it in my back pocket, and also with like Nick Constantino on our team, he can definitely bomb the ball, and I learned so much from the other guys that I played with along the way. But I still always punt on a daily basis, and I always keep it in my back pocket because I know they usually do the 1-and-1 kicker and punter, but I always tell Nick it feels like you took my job. Because I want to do everything, right? Like it's just me doing all three, but I know with the CFL, with the roster and everything like that, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, it is kind of tough. And of course, now there's going to be a new punter for the Hamilton, your team this year, the Hamilton Ticats, because Nick Constantino getting that NFL opportunity with the Cleveland Browns. They just signed him, of course, I believe last month. So how happy are you for him? And look, deserving of the opportunity from what I saw. I mean, this guy, as far as coffin corners and all that, all that, as far as getting depth and hang time on those punts, man, just had a real knack. Situational punting. A lot of football coaches talk about that. Situational punting,
Hmm.
knowing that, spots where you've got a chance to pin a team inside their own 10-yard line, and you're able to do that more often than not. Nick Constantino certainly was able to do that. So he's deserving of this opportunity. From what I've seen as a Ticat, he was tremendous, as a punter at what he did. And I know you're probably thrilled for him that he's getting an NFL look.
Yeah, like I'm definitely happy for him. Like I think he deserves a shot to get a chance down there. And I know before he came to us, he was actually at Denver, so he actually almost had a shot as well. But I'm happy he's getting a second opportunity. I'm kind of mad because he's probably one of the best holders I've had. Like he was so like technical with it, and he cared about it so much, and that's what I love. And it makes my job that much easier, right? So I'm happy for him, but I'm also kind of mad at the same time. But obviously, I hope he gets to make the team down there. He deserves it.
So what you're saying then is there's big fucking pressure on the next holder for the Hamilton Ticats now, because you know
I'm,
what it's like with field goal kicking. We all know, it doesn't matter NFL, CFL, college football. Mark, the operation, you change one little element of it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for that rhythm and that cohesion to be just as good as it was.
Yeah, like Gordon White, I've had him for 3 years now. He's money. We always tease him to say, you got to get better at snapping, but he knows he's really good at it. So I'm so happy he re-signed back this year because like keeping the same unit and just having the same consistency is massive. It makes my job that much easier. Like every time I'm out there, I got no doubt that the ball's going to be down there and give me a shot to kick it. And especially with Nick, like such good hands and the way that he was able to get the ball down every time, it's like the confidence in that is massive in that aspect.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. So we'll rewind one more time because we do want to put an end to the thread on the Winnipeg time. You were released in June of, I think, 2023. And I'm sure, like with any kicker, we were just talking before the show started. Brett Lawther for the Saskatchewan Roughriders was released earlier today. And as a fellow kicker in the league, just at the same position, you all sympathize because a lot of the kickers have been there in that same situation where, for various reasons, they are let go, they're released from their team, and they've got to find another team for that next opportunity. And you kind of have to, it is a mental blow, and you have to kind of pick yourself up off the mat again and just keep on going. How difficult was it for you to do that when Winnipeg released you?
Yeah, like it's never what you want to hear as a team coming to you and saying like, sorry, we're gonna have to release you because obviously then you got to think there's not many jobs in the league for us, right? So it's either you're gonna be waiting or hopefully like something opens up, like you never know when it could be. Um, with Brett, like he was one of the guys that I first met when I got into the league. Like he was super nice to me. He was super encouraging. He always gave me kind words after the game. We always talked after games and before games. Like someone I'll look up to in the league because he's made a mark in the league, that's for sure, and he'll be a Riders legend because he got so many field goals and points for them. So hopefully, like he gets another shot or whatever he decides to do. I know he had a little one on the way like recently as well. So congrats to him, and winning the Grey Cup is huge, but. Leaving Winnipeg, obviously, it's not what you want to hear. Like you make so many connections with guys on the team, and then I think that's what's really emotional is just saying cutting those, not cutting those ties, but leaving that room that you're used to and hopefully getting a shot somewhere else. But in the end, I think everything happens for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, everything does happen for a reason because you were not unemployed for very long, Mark. That is for damn sure. Because I think a couple of weeks later, after Winnipeg released you, the Ticats came a calling and ended up signing you. A couple of weeks later, they had, I think, their previous kicker, and he was very good. I remember him, and I think he played at A&M in college. Seth Small, he was very good,
Hmm.
and but he had a personal matter to attend to, and they had to let him go to attend to it. And the next thing you know, he never came back, and you took over. And the rest is history because you've been awesome pretty much since that day in June in 2023 when you joined the Ticats. But obviously, you already mentioned it, the thrill of being a Ticat close to home. I bet so many just positives and reasons to want to play here.
Yeah, it's actually during the draft process there were so many rumors saying that I was going to Hamilton because I think Liam had gone for NFL opportunities and the spot was technically open, but yeah, like draft night too, you can hear so many things and you can't believe what you hear because then something totally different can happen. So you just kind of hope and see what happens on that night. But yeah, it's awesome to be a part of like the Hamilton Ticats now. Like at the first day I got there, like the personnel staff, the equipment staff, like Drew, he's such an amazing guy. The guys on the team, like everyone was just so welcoming when I got there. It felt like I'd been there for a while. It wasn't really my first day. And then I did get there the day before a game, so it was kind of like you're playing the next day, and obviously you're ready for it because that's what you train for all year, right? But just the way that they were able to let me settle in and everything, I just couldn't be happier to be where I am with the Ticats right now.
Yeah, no doubt. We're thrilled to have you. You've done an amazing job. You're coming off an amazing season. Like I said, number franchise record for all accuracy in a single season. You've had these couple, like I say, the great movie Rudy, where they put you on your shoulders after walk-off kicks, the one against Toronto last year, the one against Edmonton this past season. What kind of feelings that when they're raising you on the shoulders of everybody after a big game-winning kick? That's got to be one of the great feelings because I talked to Matt Amendola. This is a
Hmm.
guy that kicked at Oklahoma State. He was on the show, and also in the NFL, Jets, Houston Texans. He kicked for both of those teams for a bit. They did something similar with him after he made a game winner against Cincinnati. They raised him up, put them on the team's shoulders, and just that feeling when you're up in the air and you're celebrating a game-winning kick, that's got to be like, one of the best feelings you could have.
Yeah, it's crazy. Game winning kicks, obviously you want to think of it as any other kick, right? So then as soon as you see the ball travel in the air, it's almost like something pauses for a second and you're just kind of watching it in slow motion. But when you see it go through and you kind of turn around and your whole bench is running at you, like it's a different feeling. Like I'll never forget that. That's for sure. And whenever
Exciting,
they
joy, and maybe a little bit, hey, please don't kill me. Don't get me injured.
Yeah, when you see a couple of 300-pound guys running at you, you kind of brace a little bit. But I always make a joke. It's like, oh, so this is what the air's like up here when you're 6'8", because I'm not that tall, and when the air quality seems a little bit more fresh up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a great feeling, and like my teammates, the way that they celebrate after those, like they just mean so much to me, and like the brotherhood that we had in the locker room is just something else.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I can tell, it's a very tight knit group. It has been for the last couple of seasons. And like I said, do you feel now after, especially, I'm sure you do after a season like that where you kicked so well, do you feel like you're in the best mental, physical, state of your career? You just feel like your kicking is where you want it to be. Do you actually feel you could even get better? Where do you think you're at individually right now?
Yeah, like, just building on season after season, that's my big thing is just, every year you want to get better if it's at something little or multiple things. And I think like where I am right now is I kind of got my comfortability level up there because, first year in the pros is different than first year in university. I know everyone thinks like it's an easy transition, but there is some different things about it. So I really think that comfortable wise, like especially with the team itself, that they made it that much easier for me because if you miss one, they don't act like it's like a massive thing. It's like hey, move on to the next one, and that's what I always did with my coach in university is going one for one. So you have a good kickoff, good punt, good field goal, and you just move on to the next kick, right? And everybody on the team always comes up to me when there is a miss, say, "Buddy, what are you worried about? Like you're the best in the league, like they're just so encouraging and like they're just amazing, the teammates that I have with the Ticats.
Yeah, no question, no question. Of course, you're on the special team side of things with this team. Boy, we've had some great special teams coaches with the Ticats over going all the way back, of course, to Jeff Reinbold. All the years
Oh
he
yeah.
was with the Hamilton Ticats, did a great job. Of course, Dennis McKnight recently 2 stints. He had a stint, went away, came back recently, and now is officially retired.
Hmm.
He did a great job. I remember when McKnight came aboard, and all of a sudden we're returning kicks better. We're covering kicks better. You're just not missing whether it's a field goal or an extra point. I mean, he did an outstanding job. And now Bob Dice takes over as the special teams coordinator. And look, we preview the CFL games every week on this show starting in June. So I've had some criticism with Bob when he was head coach of Ottawa. There were some things he didn't do I thought well. And it was a tough time. Obviously not the success you would have wanted, but everybody universally says this about Bob Dice, one of the great people you'll ever talk to and meet and deal with. And Will Arndt, who's a former CFL quarterback, he's been on this show, good friend of the show many times, and he said the same thing. It's hard not to root for Bob Dice because he's a great guy. And I'm certainly hoping this works out for him here in Hamilton, this next opportunity after
Hmm.
getting dismissed in Ottawa as head coach, now that he's special teams coordinator. And not just that, Scott Milanovic named him assistant head coach as well. So, real great opportunity for Bob Dice. Talk about your experiences with the past special teams coordinators, Mark, and obviously Bob coming on board.
Yeah, so definitely getting to Hamilton with well, first when I got to Hamilton, I actually had Paul Bordeaux, which was my Winnipeg special teams coach, and like I love Paul because he was he basically taught me like how to become a pro and everything that goes into becoming a pro. So like with him, he was a great special teams coach for me, and obviously he'll be a lifetime friend because he's a guy that gave me my first shot in the league, and he's just been such a mentor for me and moving past my first and second year from in the league and just growing every year. Then coming over to Ryan Bold, everyone's got their different coaching techniques and stuff like that, but Ryan Bold too is just such a down to earth guy, and he really gave it his all for special teams, and he's one of the gurus of special teams that around every league basically. He's well
Back with
known
Timmy
in
Chang at Hawaii too, Hawaii
oh
Warriors football,
oh yeah,
which is great
and
for
then
him. I'm happy he's got that opportunity.
And then Dennis McKnight, for the past 2 years, he's a coach like on a personal level that I always tell him like, Coach, you know what, you made football not seem like a job. You make it seem like it was fun again. Like the way that he handled and brought energy to the meetings and stuff like that, and just like on a personal level, he just kind of changed the way that you got to look at it. I know at the end of the day it is a job and it's a business and stuff like that, but he said, enjoy it because it doesn't last forever and you got to come to work every day and give it your all, but at the end of the day, you got to have fun because if you don't like what you're doing, it's a different thing, right?
Yeah, no question. Oh, I forgot Jeff Reinbold's actually come back to the CFL. He's going to be in that special teams role for Ottawa. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
he signed there last month. So congrats to him back in the CFL after being in Hawaii with Timmy Chang, an old friend, with the in the college football ranks. But yeah, no doubt, I'm excited to see what how the special teams group works under Bob Dice this year. It'll be fun to watch for sure. Got to mention something about the fact that hey, I like giving him a shot, Mark, personally, as a Ticat fan and season ticket holder. I'm talking about Trey Ford. Bring him in here, see what happens. He gets to work with a legend like Bo Levi Mitchell, future
Hmm.
Hall of Famer, multiple Grey Cup champion. An opportunity for him to basically learn under one of the best in the CFL. Because when I watch Trey Ford, there's no doubt the athleticism and the mobility is off the charts. That's why teams are excited about Trey Ford when they consider bringing him into the organization. It's the mobility, it's the ability to ad lib, bootleg, and make plays accurately, throwing the ball accurately on the run. I'm impressed with how Trey can do that. Whereas improvement has to come is that stationary, standing in the pocket, play to play, down to down accuracy, throwing the ball. That's probably where his next step has to improve. And that's where I don't think Edmonton saw the improvement in that area of Trey's game quite enough. He was an amazing runner, amazing throwing on the run, but stationary, standing in the pocket, throwing is probably where he has to get better. But you get to work under Bo Levi Mitchell. You get to work under Scott Milanovic, not only head coach, but he's worked with quarterbacks for years. He was a quarterback coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars for a bit in the NFL. He's in a position, Mark, in my opinion, to really improve on and work real well at the things maybe he needs to improve on, and a good spot for him to maybe improve on some of those issues that I mentioned. So talk about the Ticats bringing in Trey Ford. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, like from university to watching him play in the CFL, his legs have always been a problem. Like every time he's running with the ball, like you literally have no idea what's going to happen because he's just so athletic. And when he's got that ball on the run, that's where he's pretty deadly. I know everyone was saying that like in the pocket, it's a different aspect, but like I think Trey's a great quarterback. I think maybe it was maybe a change of scenery, like you mentioned, that he needed. But being under Bo and also head coach Scott Milanovic, it's going to be definitely a change for him, but like those two bringing like their skill set and everything offensively and just passing it down to him, I think it's going to be a great fit for him. And as well, he is, I think, closer to home as well, so that'll maybe me, again, the comfortable level, maybe he'll feel a little bit more comfortable. I know he was playing with his brother in Edmonton as well, which is also
Yep.
I love, like, a great thing to have. But I think this is the next big step for him, and I think he's gonna give it his all, like he always does when he comes here in training camp.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm very, very excited to see how this plays out for Trey Ford. Like I said, I don't mind it one bit because I know he's going to be learning from some really, really talented, smart, intelligent people when it comes to working at the quarterback spot with Bo, with Scott Milanovic. Do you ever get into it with Coach about his playing days with the in the XFL and going back? He played in Berlin, Germany. This guy, Scott
Yeah,
Milanovic, a long, long time ago in NFL Europe, or what do they call it? The Europe NFL League back then, something like that. I do remember it existed. He played in Berlin, Germany. Scott Milanovic back in like 2000.
yeah, he was also a punter, so he's got some kicking knowledge in his background as well. So every time we're kicking and stuff at practice, like I always take any information a coach gives me, right? Because the more info, the better. And he's been a big role model in my growth in the league as well. And he lets me do my thing. That's what I love about Scott. He's a big, he believes in you, and you got to believe in that. And he lets you just be you, right? He doesn't expect you to change what you're doing, but yeah, he's just been a big mentor for me as well, being with the Ticats.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Last thing on the Ticats and the CFL, and then we'll turn to some NFL talk, some Super Bowl for Seahawks and Patriots. But just your thoughts going into this season. Obviously, you saw the team get to the East Final last year, and now it's really all about getting to that Grey Cup again and maybe winning it. That's probably the next goal. Last year was a good step, a needed step. Because 2 years ago it didn't go the way you guys wanted to get to the East Final, and to host the East Final was great. But you guys know that you're probably going to have to ramp it up a bit more because the one thing I'm like, I want you guys to win. I want you guys to succeed and win a Grey Cup, like, as much as any Ticat fan and anybody in the city of Hamilton. But when I talk CFL on this show every week, I'll be honest too. And I did think last year you guys benefited from, you know, facing Toronto and Ottawa, and you guys face some teams with backup quarterbacks at times. And that's not to take anything away. You got to still win the games on your schedule, and you guys did. But I personally think there's another level you guys need to get to really be in the Grey Cup and win it. Do you pretty much agree with that?
Yeah, like, it sucks how the season ended last year, falling short at the end again, like a game-winning field goal after, the grind of a season, and then you see it go like fall apart just like that, and it's one game left. But I think like the pieces that we had last year and the team that Ted built, and obviously Teddy meant a lot to me as well, and then we all miss him like dearly. That's
Rest
another.
in peace, Ted Gouveia. But it's
Yes.
just very, very sad. And like I said, we had the Team Ted night that the organization put together right after his passing was just spectacular. They couldn't have done a better job of it.
Yeah, he was such a big role model in the football world, and he'll be remembered like for years to come. And he was a guy that basically gave me my first shot in the league as well. He was one of the first managers that I met uh, through football that took a shot on me basically when I went down to a camp in Texas. So he'll always mean a lot to me, and he's got such a great family and support system behind him, and the stuff that he brought to the team and like the lessons that he taught the guys and everything are just going to be carried on to the next season, right? We're hungry for this year because of just falling that little bit short, and I think that we're just stacking up the keys that we need moving into training camp, and then using training camp to gel and create that connection that we need to get back to that final game and bring the Grey Cup home to Hamilton. That's definitely something on my bucket list to see the city of Hamilton with the cup being in the community and everything like that, like how much the Ticats mean to the community. It's such a big thing. And for me to be a part of that Grey Cup coming to Hamilton would just be something else.
We're hoping. We're hoping. I mean,
Mhm.
1999 is a long freaking time ago. I was in high school still back then. I'm 40 now. So, yeah, I'm ready for another Grey Cup. You better believe
Mhm.
it. And I think a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people in the city are for sure. No question about it. All right, NFL. Let's talk some Super Bowl 60. It's coming up. It's this. Actually, before that, let's get your thoughts just on the playoffs so far, overall, from what you've seen, and specifically these two teams, the Seahawks and the Patriots. When you watch, we'll start with the New England Patriots. When Marc Liegghio watches the New England Patriots, what stands out to you about them?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I to be honest, I think it's Mike Vrabel. He's been such a game changer for them, and I think like just having the right coach at the helm is massive. And I think he's brought together the right room of guys, and especially with Drake May, he's been playing outstanding. And then adding like receivers like Stephon Diggs and some of the other key pieces that they had. Travion Henderson, I had him on my fantasy team this year, and everyone was always like down on him. But I said, trust me, like don't worry about it. He's going to step up. And then what he's been able to do, and Stevenson as well. Like I just think they have the pieces everywhere, and their defense has been outstanding all year as well. I don't know. I just think coming like all the pieces that came together with that team, like they're just clicking right now, and I think that's why they deserve to be where they are and getting a shot at the Super Bowl this year.
Then on the other side, the Seattle Seahawks. I guess the number one headline is the transformation or the renaissance of Sam Darnold. This is a guy that's been bounced around, drafted by the Jets, never went well there with the Jets. Was in Carolina for a bit, was in San Francisco for a bit, although backup was pretty much what he was relegated to there. Actually got a really good starting opportunity last year with the Minnesota Vikings, and boy, he made the most of it. Had a great regular season, but Mark, why did they sour on Darnold? Because of the fact that in the game to win the division, the last week of the regular season against Detroit, he had a rough night, and then he had probably an even rougher game in the playoffs in the wild card against the LA Rams as a member of the Vikings. It was just a tough game. It was a struggle for him. Interceptions, couldn't move the football, struggled with that Rams defense. Those last two games when the stakes were at their highest for Sam Darnold last year with Minnesota to win the division and the number one seed against Detroit, which they lost the final week, and then the playoff game. And I thought Minnesota was starting to buy into what everyone was saying that, hey, here we go with Sam Darnold. He had a great season, big steps of progression, but still the biggest games, the biggest spots, couldn't get the job done. And that's, I think, kind of what led Minnesota to move on. And they had drafted J.J. McCarthy already coming off that long injury. And they said, we got to just, trust in J.J. McCarthy now. and we're going to go in that direction. And hindsight's 2020. Maybe they're thinking different now after they see what happened with Darnold. But Darnold goes to Seattle. He knows he's got the chance to be the starter there, and the season he's had has been very, very solid. Now, he had some rough games in the regular season, but boy, those two games he struggled, Mark, against the Rams in particular in the regular season. Like, we talked about this on this show previewing the NFC Championship game last week, Mark, that this is a guy that had thrown 6 interceptions in 2 games against the Rams during the regular season. And my concern going into the NFC Championship was just maybe he doesn't have a good read on this Rams defense. But sure enough, he played a flawless game. He played, I think, personally, the best game I've ever seen Sam Darnold play. He was slinging the rock. I like that they didn't shackle him. They didn't put the handcuffs on him. They let him throw deep early in that game to get Seattle going on that first drive, showing some aggressiveness. And he just played mistake-free football. And to be honest, he outplayed, even though Stafford played well, he outplayed Matthew Stafford in that game. And again, he did what C.J. Stroud couldn't do and should have done. Don't try to be the hero. Make plays when they're there, but you have a great defense on this football team. Don't make those critical mistakes. And C.J. Stroud's just trying to force the ball into tight windows, and accuracy was an issue. He's about to get sacked, and yet he still chucks the ball up in the air and up for grabs. It was just shocking to see that from C.J. Stroud, knowing what a great defense he has. Like, you don't have to do too fucking much. Like, you just calm down and just don't make plays to lose the game. And unfortunately, C.J. Stroud, when you have a great defense, and unfortunately, C.J. Stroud did that against New England. Sam Darnold did not do that against the Rams. He was spectacular. And I know that defense is amazing on all 3 levels. They got playmakers on the D-line. They can get after the passer. The linebacking core is solid. They've got great cover corners as well. Mike McDonald's an outstanding defensive-minded head coach for this team, and he's proven that. But Sam Darnold's contributions have been immense, Mark, to getting this team to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, big time. Like, Sam Darnold, for where he started, the teams that he's been on, and like just to keep pushing, like that's the name of football, right? Your shot's gonna come, and then when you take the most out of it, like, what do you do with it? And just staying with it, and what he's been able to produce this year is just something else. And like, again, the Seahawks defense have been outstanding all year. Kenneth Walker, I think he's an animal. Like, he's like a different species when he's got that ball in his hand. Like, some of the athleticism that he shows when he runs the ball is crazy to me. Jackson Smith and Jigma, he's been probably, I think, top receiver this year besides Puka. Like, they've probably been neck and neck with stats. AJ Barner, he's been a good tight end for them as well. Like, I just think everything's like clicking for him when they need it to, and obviously he's been in the playoffs before, so he knows like the stress and what comes down to it in big games. And I think that's where everyone may favor the Seahawks a bit more, because Drake May being young and in the Patriots. But at the end of the day, it's playoffs, so everyone's 0-0, and next game matters. It's once the game's over, you're back to like square one, and watch film, get in practice, and start like scheming up things for your next opponent. And I think it's going to be a pretty good game. Defensively, it's going to be pretty back and forth, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see like some defensive touchdowns. Also,
I was thinking that too, which we'll get to with some props in a minute. I was thinking that too. Yeah.
Rashid Shaheed, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he runs one back. Like, I think that was a massive addition to their team as well. He's like a speedster with that ball in his hand. Everyone's got their pieces, and I think it's just who's gonna keep that score going and not like letting off the gas throughout the game.
All right. Actually, before we get into picks and side and total and some player props for the big game with Seattle and New England, we'll just put the graphic up. There it is. Current line 4.5 point favorite here for Seattle. This game, Santa Clara, California, of course, home of the San Francisco 49ers. 45 the total currently, and the total's been bet down because the total was as high as 46.5, 47, now down to 45, 45.5. So a lot of under. Money has shown up here the last week since the Super Bowl line was posted. Before we get into a side total and some props, the kicking matchup. You've got a veteran kicker who's been there, done that, Jason Myers for Seattle. He's been in the league a very long time. I personally think he's not nearly as lights out this year or the last 2 years as he was earlier in the year, but he's still going to make more than miss. And on the other side, you got a very young kicker in Andy Borregales, who's a great kicker at Miami. In college, very, very strong percentage of accuracy there, and is obviously going to probably have a good kicking career here in the NFL. He's looked good here with New England. Who do you give the advantage there? Do you give it to the old vet? Do you give it to the young kicker, Borregales? And what do you see in that matchup?
Yeah, that's definitely gonna it's playoffs, right? So your kicking game is always something that everyone doesn't really look at as much, but it always comes down to it in the
I
big
know you
games
look
when
at it.
so with me, it's even with Andy going from last game with the weather they had in Denver. I'm not even gonna look at that because like I've kicked in games like that, and it's tough.
You
It's
don't
it's
hold stats for a kicker in a game like that, in conditions like that, against them, pretty much,
No,
right?
I would never contradict them with the stuff going on in that game because I've kicked in those elements and it's not a fun time. So it's going to be a good game for both of them. And then obviously with Meyer, it comes down to veterans. He's been in those games and he's had more of those games under his belt, longer career. He's been in the NFL, dealt with like the crowd noise and everything that comes with the playoffs, but. I think it's going to be a solid matchup too, and like I don't think the environment's going to be that much of a problem. So, um, I think it's going to be pretty good for both of them, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of them ends up hitting like a bomb in the game. Could be some short ones with the defensive stops, like close to in the red zone. But I would be surprised if both teams had about 3 field goals each.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, that it's sounding like maybe with the kicker points, because you can with the 8.5, I think is the kicker points for Jason Myers for Seattle. Here's the one thing with kicker point props, like Jason Myers, it's 8.5 kicker points for the game, and Andy Borregales at 6.5
Hmm.
kicker points. One thing to point out is Andy Borregales in the last two playoff games, the Texans and the Broncos, only had 4 kicker points, but he did have 10 against the Chargers in the first playoff game for the Patriots. Jason Myers had 7 kicker points against the Rams in the NFC Championship. He had 11 against the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round. But again, they had a lot of points in that game. So
Yeah,
obviously, more points, more opportunities for extra points, more opportunities for field goal field goal attempts. So there you go. That's why that number was higher. Here's the thing that's tricky about the kicker points market. It's the fact that, as we know now, Mark, in this day and age in football, teams are eschewing the field goal attempt now in opposition territory more than ever before and going for it on
yeah,
fourth down. So you almost have to have kind of a feel for Mike Vrabel and Mike McDonald. These two head coaches, their tendencies. Do they go for it more on fourth down in opposition territory and not kick the field goal? If they do that, then maybe kicker points over is a little bit more of a dicey proposition. But if
yeah.
there's a coach that's more likely, in fourth down situations to take the points and take the field goal, and believe me, we're not seeing that anywhere close to as much as we did many, many years and decades ago. But that's something to weigh into your decision, I would think.
Yeah, like big time. You got to look at the percentage that they're going for it on fourth down. But I think with the Super Bowl being the Super Bowl and like whenever you have a chance to get points on the board, obviously depending on game situation, but I think they're going to take the points when they can because you're going
Two
up against
defensive
two
coaches
really
by
good.
background, too.
You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Yep.
So I think defensive wise, like I think that's probably going to be your outlook for the game. But again, if it's a close game, I think points are going to matter in the end. And again, like it's kind of come down to that, right? Like one missed extra point or one missed field goal can easily come back and just bite you at the end of the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely it can. I don't think weather's gonna be an issue though. I'm looking ahead, and that's the nice thing. I've got the weather forecast. I got so many handicapping tools for my career, Mark, when it comes to,
Yeah,
we've got injuries and matchups, and when you're doing this full time, like I am, you've got to have every basis covered. You can't leave any stone unturned, and the weather is part of it. I always have to, especially when I'm betting totals and when it comes to outdoor football games. And we saw that with Denver, New England. Once that snow and wind whipped up, it was hard to move the football. It was hard to put up points. But as of now, Mark, for the Super Bowl Sunday in Santa Clara, I'm seeing 15% chance of rain, so pretty much no precipitation, and 7 mile per hour winds for this
yeah.
game. God, you would be loving kicking in conditions like that.
That would be amazing because, like with Hamilton, technically we're the Chicago of the CFL, right? We have one of the
Swirling
windier,
winds, right?
we have the one of the windier stadiums for sure. I would say wind wise, it's probably us and SAS that have it the worst. So, I'm definitely used to the elements, and I know it plays a big factor in games. And when you see something like that, that's definitely something you don't got to worry about as much.
So let's say you were a Chicago Bear and you were Cairo Santos, their kicker. Do you feel that your Hamilton experience and with the win situation there would set you up better for success had you been kicking in Soldier Field regularly? And on a night like we saw with not only the Packer game but the Ram game for the Bears in the playoffs, you feel, hey, if I got a shot to kick in these elements, I feel I'd be okay in them because of my experience doing it in Hamilton.
Yeah, I think like coming every day to practice in Hamilton and seeing some of the windy days that we have, like you could go out there and just kind of be like you're kind of laughing when you go on the field because you're like this is crazy, but you got to play with what you're given, and yeah, I think it would definitely prepare me for situations like that. Like you got to use your leg as a golf bag, basically. You got to pull out your one iron sometimes. You could pull out your driver, but obviously it depends on what like the elements are for that day. But I definitely think playing in Hamilton is up my strong suit with kicking into the wind and the elements. That's for sure. And also being in Canada, you're playing in snow eventually, so you got to get used to that.
Exactly. No question. And like I said, we've seen a little bit of everything in this year's NFL playoffs. We've seen the wind in Chicago, saw the snow and the wind in Denver for the AFC Championship game with the Broncos and the Patriots. But it looks like we're going to have perfect conditions for Super Bowl Sunday with the Seahawks and the Patriots. I like Seattle to win the game. The one thing I would be careful though about the 4.5 laying the points though is the fact Mike Vrabel is like 28-14 as an underdog against the spread in his career as more than 3 points. And that's going back to when he coached Tennessee. And
Hmm.
how stupid do they look, by the way, right now, firing that guy? I mean, my gosh, he took Ryan Tannehill into the playoffs there with those Tennessee teams. I think they were way too harsh on him, Mark. I think they had that one rough season after he had taken them to the playoffs multiple years, and that's all it takes now. Yeah, I mean, the trigger on the changing coaches has never been quicker than it is right now. It seems like one bad year and you're out of there, and that's what happened to Mike Vrabel. He had led this team to the playoffs multiple years. The Titans one bad year and he's gone, but now he's in New England and showing again why he's a great coach. So that ATS record with him as a dog is something that would concern me. This still could be a close game, but you know the narrative you're going to build if you support Seattle is just their defense is that good. Sam Darnold showed you last week against the Rams. He's ready to play well and not only not be the reason his team loses the game, but maybe be a big a decent factor in why his team wins a game because he was great. His performance was a big reason why they won that game last week against the Rams, Mark, and especially when you consider that was not a vintage performance by the Seattle Seahawks defense. The
Hmm.
Rams were able to move the football on them. So Sam Darnold's play and ability to move the ball and punch in touchdowns was a big part in Seattle winning. And now we've seen he can be someone you can count on here after what he did against the Rams. Now, this won't be easy. The Patriots' defense has been good. They've been able to get a pass rush. They've stopped the run, which,
Hmm.
by the way, Kenneth Walker is a great running back. And without a little glass of Charbonnet, Zach Charbonnet for Seattle, I think he's still going to be out. It's going to fall on Kenneth Walker and George Halani, the backup running back, but mostly Walker will get the majority of the reps. I don't think he's going to run the football all that much, Mark, on this New England defense because I don't think New England is giving up more than about 40 rushing yards so far here in the playoffs. Like they have been that good as far as stopping the run. Yeah, no running back has gone for more than 37 rushing yards in the playoffs so far against this New England defense. But there is a Kenneth Walker prop I like, and I've bet it already because I think it's a great look. It's over 20 and a half receiving yards
Oh yeah.
for Kenneth Walker. And I think there's a real good reason for that. Sam Darnold may be under pressure. We know the New England defensive front has wreaked havoc. There's going to need a need to get the ball out quickly. And if Kenneth Walker can't run the football between the tackles against this good Patriots run defense, which again has not given up more than 37 rushing yards to any running back in these playoffs, that means you're going to have to try to get the ball to Walker in other ways via the screen game, and as a pass catching running back. And he showed against the Rams last week he could do that. When we see the stats for the box score for last week, Kenneth Walker had 49 receiving yards on 4 receptions in that game. So his receiving yards prop is only 20 and a half. I think game script wise, matchup wise, he's not going to have a ton of success running it against this Patriots defense. It's going to be the screen game and getting Walker the ball in space for Sam Darnold. I think that's going to be something that Seattle's going to have to do to get Walker involved. So I like that receiving yards prop over quite a bit, Mark, for Kenneth Walker for Seattle, over 20.5 receiving yards. That one stuck out to me right away.
Yeah, if you get him the ball in space too, he can make so much stuff happen with the ball in his hands. And if the run game's not working and they start opening up the sides of the field and making them think it's bubble or screen every time, another sneaky play that I usually think that no one really looks at, and if it's not a mobile quarterback, like I would even look at Sam Darnold's rushing yards if he's getting pressured a lot, because if they start opening the field, especially with Jackson Smith down the field, it can leave the middle of the field pretty open, and I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks out like a 20-yard run throughout the game or something like that. Especially Drake May against Denver too. He was getting it done with his legs as well. So, both quarterbacks kind of got that sneaky mobile aspect with them. So I wouldn't be surprised if the quarterbacks also get their feet moving a bit.
I actually think the quarterback passing yard props in this game, Mark, the passing yards might be low for both of them, and I'll explain why. Drake May's passing yards clearly in the game against Denver suppressed by, well, a pretty good defense, but more so the weather, the wind, the snow, like very, very difficult elements to be throwing the football, especially throwing the football deep. Your yards per pass attempt go way down in conditions like we saw in Denver. And there's a big reason why, Drake May against the Broncos last week only had 86 passing yards. But I think that number has kept his passing yards number for this game anchored lower than it maybe should be, because right
Yeah.
now you see with the passing yards for Drake May, it's 218 and a half. And for Sam Darnold, it's 231 and a half, the passing yards prop number. I think both quarterbacks could go over the number and their respective number. And here's why. The conditions are going to be fine. Clearly, no weather issues here on Sunday in Santa Clara. That's number one. Number two is both teams defensively, they're better against the run than the pass. Both of them. New England, you can't run on them. Nobody. We just talked about it. They haven't given up anybody running the football more than 37 yards. And Seattle's got a great run defense. It's been very, very difficult and tough sledding to run on the Seahawks as well. But we did see Matthew Stafford have some success throwing on this Seattle pass defense a bit. And it's not a bad pass defense. It's solid, but it's just not as strong, in my opinion, Mark, Seattle's secondary, as their ability to stop and contain the run. So I think if you're going to have any kind of success against Seattle's defense, it's more than likely going to come through the air in the passing game rather than on the ground. And it could be the same for Sam Darnold against New England's defense, that his success could be more through the air as opposed to on the ground, because, again, it's been difficult to run on New England as well. And not to mention, when you look at Sam Darnold against the Rams, he threw for an incredible 346 passing yards. But Stafford, in a loss, threw for 374 passing yards on that Seattle defense. So to me, because of the fact I think both defenses are superior and stronger stopping the run, how the hell are you going to move the football? You got to find some pathway to do it. It could be more through the air. So this is a game where I'm actually interested in both quarterbacks, Mark, to go over passing yards. Sam Darnold over 231 and a half, and Drake May over 218 and a half. I think it's doable.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. It's playoff football, right? So you're gonna have to air out the ball at some point in the game, because obviously both teams are really strong in the run defense, but it's also too like Stafford with the receiving weapons that he has in Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. Like, I wouldn't be afraid to air that ball out either. So I kind of look at like and also Stafford too. He's got Kyron Williams as well and Blake Corum, so he's got the running options and the throwing options. But with, I think, Seattle, I think, has the receiving upside of Jackson Smith with the younger speed, but also everyone was kind of sleeping on Stephon Diggs this year as well, and I'm like, it's still Stephon Diggs, you know what I mean? So, and I think like with the energy that he's going to bring for the Super Bowl, because he's fell short a couple times. Like, I don't think he's leaving anything on the field, so I think airing out the ball too is going to be pretty good for both teams. But I think with like the passing aspect, just with Darnold again, you can use the veterancy on him, and also with like the weapons that he has around him. That's why maybe people are going towards the Seahawks a bit more defensively and offensively. But like Drake May with Mike Vrabel, like, I don't know, you never know what to expect, because I think he's a great coach, and obviously with the business decisions it is in the league, if if you're not getting it done, like you got to point it at somebody, and that's the downside of football. But I just think he's a great coach, and he's going to bring out some stuff this game that we're probably not going to be ready for.
I'm gonna like Rashid Shaheed touchdown prop just in case he busts one on a kick return, which he did against San Francisco. The touchdown prop, I think, for Rashid Shaheed's worth a look. I think even over receiving yards is worth a look. I think he had just one catch last week, but it was enough to go over his receiving yards because it was that big play that he
Yeah.
had from Sam Darnold. That's all it took.
Rashid Shaheed always has that one play that puts him right over that prop, and then especially with like the return upside with him as well for an anytime touchdown one, I think that's a sneaky play as well.
And I'm not going to reinvent the wheel with JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He somehow always goes over 6.5, 7.5 receptions. What did he have? 10
Yeah,
a game against the LA Rams. Like he finds ways to get open in coverage, and they find ways to get him the football. And Clint Kubiak, who is of course the Seattle offensive coordinator, now it looks like he's taken a head coaching job, I believe, with the Raiders. But nevertheless, he's done a great job still finding ways to scheme open JSN in space, even though like it's not like opposing defenses, Mark, say, well, we've forgotten how to cover Jackson. They know they got to cover him,
oh
Jackson
yeah,
Smith and Jigba, but they find ways to get him open still. And that's a credit to the scheme and the coordinator, and obviously JSN's ability to still shake coverage. So I still think he goes over his receptions. I like the Shaheed look. Here, I'll give you one for New England here, Mark. Hunter Henry, the tight end. He had
big
a
fan.
quiet game. Yeah, and he's very good. And he had a quiet game, though, against Denver. But again, factor in the elements, the weather. Maybe the matchups dictated that, the tight end position wasn't going to be nearly as open against a defense like the Denver Broncos. And as a result, Hunter Henry only had 12 receiving yards on 2 receptions against Denver in the AFC Championship. But Seattle is bottom 5 in the NFL defending tight ends. The Seahawks. They will give up their yards. They will give up their receptions to Hunter Henry. So everyone's going to maybe look at that game, Mark, and say 12 receiving yards. Maybe don't look at Hunter Henry props. No, I think it's a buy low opportunity. And I think the matchup might work because, again, Seattle has had issues giving up yards and receptions to tight ends this year. So the Hunter Henry prop, this could be the time to get back in on that here, whether it's over receptions which is, let me see, Hunter Henry over receptions is 3.5. I could see him maybe getting 4 receptions, and his receiving yards is listed at 38.5. And remember, this is a guy that had 64 receiving yards in the first playoff game, the wild card round against the Chargers. So I think 38.5. Hunter Henry might be able to go over that number. Again, Seattle has had some issues defending the tight end this year.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of tight ends and their receptions because I think in playoff games, maybe teams will want to take those shots down the field and maybe, cause an interception. So I could see them getting like the 5 to 7 yard catches just to move the chains. And I actually am a big fan of Hunter Henry with those over receptions.
Yeah, you could see that's the thing too, and that's why you should split it up, right? Receptions and receiving yards, because you don't want to be in a spot where Hunter Henry has like 5 receptions but only 32 yards, where it's just a very, very small yards per catch radius because they're just looking to dink and dunk and get the chains moving. You're right. So that's why receptions and receiving yards, I like the Hunter Henry props both ways, but maybe split it up. Don't just take one or the other. Take both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Is there anything else that stands out to you player matchup wise here in this game?
Yeah, this one's kind of tough. Like I think we kind of banged everything out. It's I like Hunter Henry. I think he's a great player. Um, Jackson Smith and Jigma, you can't say enough about him. The run game is definitely going to be one that's going to be a little tough. Like obviously everyone's going to be a little bit skeptical about it, but you never know with once someone breaks out a 50-yard run and there you go. You know what I mean? But I think it's going to be a really good defensive matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one return touchdown by Rashid because I just love watching him with the ball in his hands. And even with him, he's that one
touchdown potential for both teams. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then I think he's that one big play, like, good 40 to 60-yard catch. He's going to get that one bomb downfield. But I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I think everyone's got a lot of high expectations in both teams. And Sam Darnold, I think it's a big proven game that, like, he deserves to be that guy, and he's shown it all season. And then Drake May with that MVP contender, he's just got that on his shoulders, and he's going to show why he had the season he did as well.
One of my go-to Super Bowl props. I think I bet the Super Bowl prop, the same prop, Mark, every year for the Super Bowl, and I've been at this full time for 15 years now. And it's second half to be higher scoring than the first half. And I find that's a prop that doesn't always hit, but more often than not, it does. And it makes sense here. You got defensive-minded head coaches, Mike Vrabel for New England, Mike McDonald for Seattle. It could be slow out of the gate, and it's also first-time starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. This is Sam Darnold's first Super Bowl. Obviously, this is Drake May's first Super Bowl. So maybe a little more caution than you would see otherwise out of the gate. So that prop, I always like it, but I think this year it might even be a stronger look. That prop for second half to be higher scoring than the first half. I like that one.
Yeah, that one also too. I think they use the first half to kind of read the game and see how it's going, and then come out after halftime and have like a different game plan on a way to attack. Like, I think that's a good way to look at the game as well. And that's usually what happens in the CFL. Well, how much scoring happened the last 3 minutes of the game?
Yeah, and the second halves. Oh, I know. I've seen a ton of second half overs in the CFL. Just been crazy with the explosion we've seen in some of their games in that league, of course, that you play in, and how many points there are in the second half. All right, final prediction here: Seattle or New England? Who do you think is hoisting the Lombardi?
My gut's telling me like I think I want to go with Seahawks.
I am too. It's just at the end of the day, Vrabel's great. We know that.
Oh yeah.
And they found ways to win games that there's a lot of people that thought they wouldn't beat the Chargers. They did. There's a lot of people that thought they wouldn't beat the Texans and their defense. They did. Denver, did have a backup quarterback instead of Bo Nix, but a lot of people didn't think New England would get this far. I don't want to sell them short, and Mike Vrabel will use every tool in the toolbox. He will have a speech of speeches before this game saying no one believes in us. We're not supposed to be here. People think we feasted on this week's schedule, which they have. That is a strong narrative, Mark. They feasted on one of the weakest strength of schedules in recent NFL memory. And look at the pathway here. They faced the Chargers with a compromised O-line. They faced the Texans, and C.J. Stroud at that game. Denver without Bo Nix. So, yes, they have had a charmed life, New England, but they are still a good team, and they're very well coached. I just think Seattle is just the stronger roster, top to bottom, a little bit better defense. The fact that Seattle faced a much tougher schedule, the tougher division, the NFC West compared to the AFC East, and I think they'll find a way. I don't think they're going to blow them out. I'm hearing people say they're going to blow out New England. I'm not totally convinced of that. I think Vrabel's too good of a coach for Seattle just to run away and hide in this game, but I am going to go with Seattle to win this Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I don't think it's going to be a blowout game by any means. Like I think it's either going to be a 3-point game or a 4-point game. I think it's going to come down to either a kick or it's going to come down to somebody driving the field at the end of the game to win the game. I think that's the way the game's going to play out, and I don't think any team's just going to be sitting back and relaxing the whole game with a nice lead ahead of them.
No doubt, no doubt. So we're looking forward to that game for sure. How's the fantasy league going? By the way, you mentioned you being in it. Are things going well? Are you in contention? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, actually, one of my leagues I came in second, and unfortunately some other leagues I came in third, so I just missed the final round. But from the drafting perspective, I think I did a pretty good job and relying on a lot of the rookies this year, and always looking at that waiver wire to see if there's anyone I could sneak onto the roster.
No doubt. Like I said, it's going to be a fun game and looking forward to it, just like we looked forward to this interview. Great stuff with our guest, Marc Liegghio. Like I said, it's great to have you in Hamilton playing for the Ticats, and certainly wish you all the success the rest of the way in your career and moving forward. Is there anything you wanted to add and say before we wrap it up?
No, thank you so much, Ian, for having me on. Like, I'm a big football guy. I know, like, maybe I'm just a kicker, but I got a little bit of football knowledge, that's for sure. And
You sure do, of course.
I'm
We're gonna have
always
to bring you back on the show. Is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm always watching and looking for the next big talent. Being in the fantasy world. I know all the ins and out of that league, and maybe I might be the only guy watching the extra points during Sunday football, but that's what I'm interested in.
Hey, if it gives you an edge, and I know this being in this careers in sports betting for 15 years, if you find an edge, it doesn't matter where it is or what it is, use it to your advantage. If you have that mindset for kicking and knowing what to look for, take advantage of it, because that's probably going to give you an edge over everybody else when it comes to measuring the ability and the acumen, if you will, of particular kickers when it comes to football. Marc, great stuff. We hope everyone watching enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. Thanks to our guest, Marc Liegghio, for joining us. I'm Ian Cameron, and this has been another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it.